As I share my stories with my friends and family, as I tell them on YouTube, I have people say to me that I've lived an exciting life. There are so many stories that I have that they just can't believe. One of my aunts calls them fairy tales because they're so unbelievable, and of course, being the one telling the stories, this sends me through a lot of thoughts. I've never felt like anything I've seen or done is that fascinating. I've always thought that if you go out into the world, you're bound to have strange run-ins, and I still hold that belief. Some will tell me that impossible encounters magnetized me due to my openness and charismatic nature, which makes me feel pretty good, but then I start to think about all the things I've done that have shaped me the most. Were they really my decisions? Let me give you some examples here. Back in 2018, I went to Vietnam. Was it my choice? Well, kinda. I never thought I'd travel outside the US, and I for sure had no reason to think about Vietnam as a destination. I had some friends who lived there for 2 years, and they were gonna take a trip back to visit. They asked me if I wanted to go. This was a random external event they never had to offer. After my month-and-a-half trip, I did make the decision to go back and live there for another 5 months, but that never would have happened if my friends hadn't taken me there in the first place. Going to Vietnam was not my own original idea. Then there's the road trips. A buddy of mine named Trevin got the idea in his head that he wanted to go on a road trip, and he invited me. Again, I never thought I would sell my Charger, buy an 80s hippie bus, and travel America. And yet, here I am on my second trip across the country. And I never would have done this had it not been for Trevin asking me if I wanted to tag along with him the first time. See, I've always been the kind of person who's up for anything. You invite me somewhere and I'm bound to say yes. Did I decide to be that way? Why am I that kind of guy? When I look back on my life and think about all the things I've done, all these stories that sound so amazing to others, I realize that I wasn't the initiator. Someone else put the idea in my head and I ran with it. I mean, think about this. I'm a YouTuber. That's been my job since 2017. But my first YouTube channel that I ever started was back in high school. And I started it because a friend of mine wanted a channel and needed my help to set it up. I only got into YouTube because of him. So if all these things that make up my life, all of these events and memories define me as Barry, but none of these major events in my life were the cause of my own initiative, then we've got some weird thoughts to go through. I've always heard through my life that we're guided. Our souls have a specific mission in this life that we have to fulfill, otherwise we'll have to try again and again until we get it right. I like to play around with this idea, and along with that, I ask myself, what is this mission, if it exists at all? Am I being guided by something larger than myself, and if so, what's the purpose? I think about all these things I've done, these things that have changed me and helped me grow, and I cannot be more thankful that I've gone through everything that I have. Perhaps I was meant to get PTSD in Vietnam. That was something that was supposed to happen to me, but I wonder who decided that was supposed to happen to me. See, don't get me wrong, normally when I think about this stuff, I'm very pragmatic about it. Well, I wasn't meant to get PTSD, it just happened. Simple as that. I wasn't meant to go to the UK, I just happened to win a bet against my buddy and he bought me a plane ticket. But what if there is something guiding us? Think back through your life and all the events that shaped you the most, when you grew the most and found out what kind of person you really were. When you think back far enough to the origin of the story, was it your choice to enter into that situation? I have one more example for you that always blows my mind. There I was in Vietnam. My girlfriend and I were going through a very rocky point in our relationship and we decided to break up. Just end it and never see each other again. That was it. I didn't know where she lived, and in a city of 8 million people, there'd be no way to just run into her. I wake up one morning. It had been 2 days since the breakup and something was telling me to go outside. I didn't want to go outside, but the urge was so strong that I just did it. I walked around randomly for a while, and then all of a sudden, I'm face to face with my newly ex-girlfriend. How is that even possible? That's the kind of crap you see in those cheesy romantic Korean dramas, but I came to find out that life just works like that sometimes. For a while, I went through an existential crisis about all this. My life's biggest choices aren't my own. Everything I've ever done that I look back on and feel proud about was the result of me going with the flow of the motions. They were not my decisions, but then I thought about it for a while. I wasn't the one who decided that I'd bump into my ex. I wasn't the one who decided to visit Vietnam for the first time. I didn't decide that I was going to just randomly buy a hippie rig and travel America. But when the opportunity presented itself organically, I did have a choice. Yes or no. I was the one who decided to let life take me on my next adventure. I was the one who pointed my feet in a direction. See, control doesn't exist. A lot of us are afraid of not being in control of our lives, but the fact is we aren't. There's a harmony to determinism and free will, and I see a lot of people on one side or the other. They either believe that their whole life has already been mapped out and predetermined, or they believe that we have complete control of our lives and nothing is set in stone. But I don't think these are mutually exclusive. See, if I was meant to walk out into the street that day and accidentally meet up with my ex, that was out of my control. A city of 8 million people? I mean, come on, that can't be a coincidence, right? I was meant to see her again, but what was in my control was how I reacted when I saw her. Same thing when Trevin invited me to go on the road trip. I could have told him no. I could have said, yeah, I'll go, but only for a week. The things that happen to us externally is completely out of our control. This might be predetermined, who knows? But your choices, your reactions, and the things you say, that's where it harmonizes with free will. Let's talk about death. What happens after you die? This is one thing that scares people more than anything else. This is a total loss of all control. You have all these things that you want to do, but man, that bus looks like it's coming pretty fast. You can hope that your time is at the ripe old age of 65, but oh shucks, you just tripped holding that very sharp knife. It can happen at any time, and this can make a person so worried that they unconsciously decide to stop living now. What do I mean here? Well, think about it this way. Say you're the kind of person who's terrified of death. Your friends invite you to go to the lake and they're jumping off a rope swing into the water. They look at you, take the rope, but you look down and you're so afraid of all the potentials. What if I drown? What about freshwater sharks? What if I dive in and a tree branch is floating by and I bust my head open and then a bunch of piranhas come in and attack the blood, and there's so many of them that they keep moving so fast that they cause enough friction to light the entire lake on fire and I die of asphyxiation? This is what anxiety does, and anxiety can be so crippling that in a sense, you may as well already be dead. The minute you stop living life because you're afraid you might not be around tomorrow is the minute you chose to die. I think the biggest problem we have with this topic is that it's so taboo. I mean, for the love of God, this video is probably going to get demonetized because the death word is a naughty word. But if you look back through history, if you look at the teachings of ancient civilizations, their biggest questions and ceremonies were around this very topic. The communication around death was not taboo, it was a blatant fact of the matter that had them curious. They came up with all these ideas and celebrations. They entered into trances and wrote down everything and anything they could attain on the subject. And I think this might be our biggest weakness. Our fear of what we don't understand causes us anxiety, and our reluctance to dive into the conversation with others keeps us stranded in that chaotic mindset. So let's talk about this for a minute and calm our asses down a bit. A couple weeks ago I had a dream. I was supposed to meet my brother at the bar. I showed up to the place where I thought I was supposed to be, went to the register and ordered, and the lady laughed at me. You think this is the bar? Apparently, I accidentally stumbled into a halfway house. I looked around and I saw people laying on couches and chairs, wandering through the room, coming off of whatever drug they were on. It looked like a comfortable place. I sat down on a couch and whipped out my phone to look for the bar when 3 guys surrounded me. It seemed like they were coming off heroin. They were grabbing my arms and running their hands across my skin. It was uncomfortable, but I knew they were high, so I didn't care. One of the guys put his hands into my pockets and grabbed my wallets and keys. I ripped them out of his hands and told him to back off. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him pull a gun out of his pants and he said, "Give those things back to me." I started to turn around and I was saying, "Man, it's not like that." But before I could get the last word out, he shot me in the back of the head. I felt the bullet pierce my skull. I saw the scene slowly fade to black, and then I woke up. Now, let me ask you a question. What if that was real? What if I just lived someone else's life? The guy I was in the dream was me. I'd always been that person. He had a brother, he had a goal, things he wanted to do, and this was so vivid to me that it may as well have been reality. Once I died, I woke back up as Barry, remembering this life as me. What if when you die, you wake up from a dream? Wow, what a vivid dream, you think, as all these memories of yourself flood back into your mind, and you wake up for another regular day. If this were the case, death wouldn't really exist. You'd never have a reason to understand what death even is. See, life is experience. Tell me what life was before you were born. You don't remember, huh? That's because it wasn't an experience. There are philosophers out there like Alan Watts who talks about this concept. Death is an illusion that humans made up to scare each other. When you die, you just wake up from a dream. Or maybe you splash into the darkness and emerge eyes wide to a world that feels brand new. You're a newborn baby once again, and this cycle repeats forever. Maybe you're not even on Earth this time. You don't remember your last life because then this cycle would be pointless. You want to experience something new for the first time, and if you've seen this planet 1,000 times, it would get boring, so you have to be wiped. Ego erased, and you start out with a brand new experience to learn and grow all over again, forever. Now, reductionist science has an idea as well, and it's just as basic as you might expect. When you die, the lights go out and you never return. Cool. Alright, so even with this idea, why should you ever be afraid? You won't experience anything, no pain, no sense of loss, you're off like a light, and there's literally no reason to be afraid of not being around. If anyone's unlucky here, it's the people who are still alive after you're gone. They'll remember you, but damn, you're getting the best sleep you've ever had without a care in the world. This is all I mean to say. When you open the conversation about a touchy subject, you tend to find some relief. Being able to play with the ideas that scare you the most turns anxiety back into imagination, and you can look at these concepts with a childlike wonder. If there's any takeaway I can offer without sounding preachy, I'd like to say this. If you're afraid of dying, afraid of your story coming to an end, try thinking of yourself as a book. If a book was self-aware, it would know that every good story has an end. It's not afraid of the end, it's not trying to run from the end, it wants to be complete. So instead of locking yourself in your room to ensure nothing bad ever happens to you and you can live a very long time, look at your pages and ask yourself, what do I want my story to be? What am I going to fill these pages with? Travel, love, children, daring to inspire those closest to you? Keep your stories close because those are the one thing that you have that can never be changed. You're going to make mistakes in life. That's the point. Don't run from them. Turn and look at them. Grow from them. There's nothing worse in a book than bad character development, so face your demons. In the end, just do the things that make you happy while you're here. And when things go wrong for you and life sends you through hell, remember that it was all out of your control anyway.